Recently, there was a decision made in the court system on a subject that stabbed a 94-year-old San Franciscan right in mid-daylight multiple times. She did survive it. This subject was his second stabbing offense. This occurred right around 2021, and the courts recently decided to place him on probation for approximately 5 years. This is normally really unheard of. In San Francisco this year, we've been identifying problems with the judges. They've been extremely lenient. When the court gives someone 5-year probation for stabbing someone multiple times, it sends the wrong message. You're not even doing any jail time. You don't lose any freedom. You're just back on the street. It's just another day. You have conditions under your probation. That's it. It's just another day. It almost sends the message that you get away with it. The next thing you know, it's going to send a message that you'd almost get away with murder. Just by chance, after this was released in the news, and we were retrieving some data on the amount of participants they have on probation in San Francisco. It's kind of unbelievable that the adult probation department has about 4,974 participants on probation. And that data is from January of this year. Out of the 4,974 participants, only 1,382 are active. The remaining 3,592 have been revoked. It's been suspended, revoked. They have arrest warrants out for them. So it's a 72% failure rate. So out of the 3,592 people that are violating probation, they're violating the conditions of probation. So either not contacting or staying in touch with their probation officer, they're not replying or following the probation office's rules, they're either violating curfew, they're returning to crime, they're either going back to using drugs or using alcohol. Now that's just your regular standard probation. There's even sexual offender where they should be monitored even closer. And we have a 72% failure rate in San Francisco on that. And they're placing people out conducting violent crimes on probation instead of jail. This is the big picture of it. This is their alternatives to incarceration. And this is a big problem in San Francisco. What's happening is they're in this mindset that they have to avoid incarceration. They have to avoid it. So they're pushing people out on probation. They're pushing people out on electronic monitoring, and that system's failing. You know, as you can see here, 72% failure rate. And we have murderers out on ankle monitoring. We have rapists on ankle monitoring. Now you have violent crime, stabbings, the suspects of the crime out on probation. And when they're out on probation, ankle monitoring, you would think there's a high level of supervision. Well, there isn't, unfortunately. And there's little to no enforcement when they violate. For example, the San Francisco Sheriff's Office has 7 deputies on their warrant service unit. 2 of them are assigned to the police department in a multi-jurisdiction task force. The remaining 5 are supposed to be on the streets every day going out for subjects without standing warrants, for people that violate, probation, people that violate ankle monitoring, people that have arrest and bench warrants. Out of the 5, sometimes they get pulled off the street to fill vacancies in the department because of short staffing. Probation has maybe 12 probation officers. So really, this idea of alternatives to incarceration, there's no enforcement arm. There's multiple levels of problems in San Francisco's criminal justice system. One layer is the judges. In San Francisco, the majority of our judges were public defenders. The public defenders ran for office to become judges. But it's a serious problem. The revolving door of the jails, it's spinning so fast, it's never been like this before. The good thing, though, what the police department's doing is targeted enforcement. Although they're extremely short-staffed, targeted enforcement is a very good strategy, and it appears to be reducing some crime. The district attorney is doing a good job. But the problem is when you have inefficient departments, weak judges, lack of funding, and you can't hire the personnel to improve the enforcement, you have a lot of failure. the amount of crime out there is not just the crime that you can see. The visitors, the people live in San Francisco, they see the drug users, the drug dealers, they're impacted by the theft and the homelessness. But there's layers of crime that no one's seen that's behind closed doors. For example, could be, kidnappings, sexual crimes, abuse behind closed doors, counterfeiting, digital crimes, ID thefts, and it just goes on and on. I could tell you a quick story. In my younger days, I was raised in the city, and for a time period, we lived in the Tenderloin. And my father actually managed a small apartment complex. I think it was like 6 to 8 units, and he had some renters there. And you went to the door of the renters and knocked on the door because there was some sort of disturbance. He opened the door, he addressed the people there, but what he discovered was there was a girl that was kidnapped, from the bus transit station. So this stuff happens out there. There's a lot of crime that's not seen. There's been a big push or big mindset to, alternatives to incarceration and more lenient methods and more programming. Well, that's okay, but if the programming's not working, if the rehabilitation's not working, you got to have enforcement. There's been budget cuts in the past. There's been current budget cuts to that. But yet, if you look at the city economy and if you look at how the city's spending money, it just seems to be like, they're shifting money to one area, which is almost like a money pit, and taking away from law enforcement. They need to pull back from wasting money and put it back into the sheriff's department and start looking at enforcement and making San Francisco safe again.